What if I told you there's a masjid where the imam leads the prayer in one country, and the muazzin, the one who calls to prayer, stands in another? Sounds like a scene from a movie, right? But it's real, and it's one of the strangest yet saddest results of borders that weren't made for people, but for power. Borders have always been part of human history. Sometimes they follow rivers or mountains. Sometimes they're drawn to mark natural boundaries, shaped by geography and tradition. But in many places around the Muslim world, borders were drawn with rulers, not reason. Straight lines across deserts, valleys, and villages. Sharp cuts through languages, cultures, and even sacred places. In one unbelievable case, that line runs straight through a masjid. Let's take a look at Petrovka, a quiet village near the border of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan.
Once part of the same country under the Soviet Union, the villagers here lived side by side, prayed together, married across families, shared food, and built their lives without thinking twice about national borders.
Back then, there were no international checkpoints, no passport control, just neighbors. But when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, things changed overnight. Suddenly, new countries were born. On paper, at least. Bureaucrats in distant offices began drawing lines, and those lines didn't care about the village of Petrovka. They didn't care that the masjid sat right in the middle of it. Today, that same masjid still stands. But now, the entrance is in Uzbekistan, and the mihrab, the prayer niche facing Makkah, is in Kazakhstan. So if you're a villager who wants to attend Friday prayer, and you live on the wrong side, you technically need to cross an international border. That means paperwork, border guards. And in times of political tension between the two nations, the masjid can be shut down completely. Imagine needing permission to attend Jumu'ah. Imagine the mihrab is just 10 steps away, but you can't get to it. Sadly, this isn't an isolated story. From West Africa to Central Asia, from the Middle East to South Asia, many Muslim communities face the same heartbreak. Families cut in half, villages split, markets blocked, and masjids, houses of worship meant to unite hearts, caught in legal limbo because of man-made lines. So how did this happen? It goes back to one of the most damaging political agreements of the 20th century, the Sykes-Picot Agreement. After World War I, European powers sat down to carve up the Ottoman Empire. With pens and paper, they divided the lands of the Muslims, lands that had been connected for centuries, into new zones of influence. The British took control of areas that would become Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine. The French took Syria and Lebanon. And just like that, the Ummah was fractured. These lines weren't drawn to serve the people. They were drawn to control them. And the effects still echo today. Take the example of Nigeria, where the border between North and South has not only divided political power, but also religious and cultural identities. Or look at Sudan, where decades of internal conflict eventually split the country in two. Somalia, too, remains divided, with Somaliland functioning as an independent state even though it's not officially recognized. And don't forget Kashmir, where the border between India and Pakistan is more than just a military flashpoint. It's a daily reality for millions of Muslims who live with tension, surveillance, and fear. And all of this began with borders drawn without their say. When you zoom out and look at the map of the Muslim world, it's hard not to feel a sense of loss. Not just the loss of land, but the loss of unity. Places that once shared trade, language, scholarship, and faith are now fenced off by laws and checkpoints. We talk about the Ummah being one body, but physically it's been divided into pieces, sometimes by rivers, sometimes by walls, sometimes heartbreakingly by the walls of a masjid itself. So the next time you see a border on a map, remember it's not just a line. It could be someone's home, a school, a market, or a sacred place, like the masjid in Petrovka, split by a history that people there never chose. Would you pray in a masjid split between two nations? What would you do if your Friday prayer required crossing a military checkpoint? Let me know in the comments. And if this story made you see maps differently, stay tuned, because in the next episode we explore a Muslim country that functions like a nation, but doesn't officially exist on the map. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.